Abide in me. Upon first hearing these words of Jesus, they can sound a little over the top to many of us, especially in a culture that celebrates rugged individualism. And then it gets worse. Without me, you can't do anything. In fact, Jesus goes on to say that if we don't abide in him, we'll be like branches that wither up and die and then are thrown into a fire and burned. Whoa, that sounds rather threatening. How exactly is this good news? But if we slow down just a little bit and we consider the full sentence that Jesus offers, everything changes. Abide in me as I abide in you. Suddenly we hear those words about withering, dying, and burning as a description of how we might feel when we're separated from Jesus' love, grace, and acceptance. When we consider the context in which John wrote this gospel, we gain even more insight. First, we note that this was part of his passage to the disciples called the farewell discourse, his final teaching for them before his crucifixion. And then we need to consider the community for which John is writing. These are folks who have been rejected by those around him because of their devotion to Jesus. They felt cast out and cut down. But John's retelling of Jesus' words offers them another way to reinterpret their experience of being pruned rather than cut. His assurance that Jesus is abiding in them and won't let them go offers hope to those who have been rejected by their community. These words resonate through the centuries to people who feel overrun by life, as John offers them another point of view. Hearing that Jesus is with us, holding us and loving us, and won't let us go, transforms what may feel like a death cut into something that's just mere pruning. It offers the promise that growth is ahead and that new life will come. Imagine what a difference it might make to hear these words of hope. If you are a teen who has been bullied as you sit alone in the school cafeteria, not welcome at the tables of your peers. Consider what it might feel like for someone to hear this promise if they have been let go from a job that they've loved, and now they face rejection after rejection in their search for a new position. Imagine the hope that may be offered to a caregiver whose beloved spouse is slipping away day by day, little by little, as dementia takes them further into a world they no longer recognize. For those not currently facing a life challenge, however, this countercultural message may be a bit hard to hear. Many of us know that when things are going along smoothly, we tend to be lured by the societal pull to trust in ourselves alone. We lean toward seeing dependence as moral weakness. And although we believe in loving our neighbors, we are much more comfortable when they keep their distance. People in this context tend to hear Jesus' words as a challenge at best, a threat at worst. He tells his disciples, "Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me, you cannot do anything." And they ring in the ears of many listeners today as blunt and demanding. But then Jesus continues, "Whoever does not abide in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. Some branches are gathered, thrown into the fire and burned. What? Burned? Gulp. Goodbye, Lone Ranger. Hello, branches? I hear these words and I think of my philodendron plant that has grown long tendrils without regard for personal space. It spreads and invades, tangling itself up as it grows rapaciously. Is this a metaphor for Jesus' words about abiding? I think Pastor Nadia Bowles-Weber says it best. Christianity is a lousy religion for the I'll do it myself folks. For Jesus makes it clear that we are meant to be tangled up together, living lives of interdependence as we grow around, into, and out of each other. This metaphor makes clear that dependence is not a matter of personal preference, but one of life and death. Branches that do not cling to the vine may die. Many of us, however, don't want to believe this, finding these words inconvenient and offensive because they imply that our choices may affect people that we don't even know, implying that we are bound to others whether it suits us or not. You may be well asking at this point, what do you mean my life is not my own? Note that the word abide appears 8 times in this short passage. If God is the vine grower and Jesus is the vine and we are the branches, it seems that we only have one task: to abide, to stay, to cling, to remain, to depend, to rely, to persevere. We need to make ourselves at home and hang in for the long haul. For a community about to undergo a transition, these words hold particular promise and meaning. First, note that God is a vine grower and Jesus is the vine. Human beings are just the branches, and the one to which we must cling, in which we are called to abide, is not going anywhere. When times get challenging, we are not to try and break away, but rather to stay and to be even more tangled up in one another. Abide is a challenging word. On the one hand, it's passive. It's indicating that we are to stay rooted in place. And yet, on the other hand, it requires us to grow, to change, and to multiply. It also requires that we make ourselves vulnerable. If we abide, we get pruned. We'll have to coexist with other branches, living a life that's messy and crowded and tangled and gorgeous. We commit to a life that is deeply rooted and wildly fertile. Abide in me as I abide in you. The only true life that we will live in this world is one where we consent to live in relationship, tangled and messy though that life might be. In the days ahead, my prayer is that these gracious words of promise, presence, and providence may be ones that serve as your North Star. Yes, it may be difficult, but it's exactly what we were made for, my friends. I can't wait to see all of the ways that you will abide in a new future. Amen.